everybody, so today we're going to be working on making some yeast rolls. I've got my two little helpers here today. This is my son Kellen and my daughter Lacey. Say hi.
Hi.
So we are going to use yeast as microbes to make food. Okay, so first we're going to start out just kind of like you would in the lab. We're going to use some 409 cleaner to clean our counter space where we're working today. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to spray it on there. Watch your hands, Lacey. Hands up.
I need pictures.
Hands up in the air. Kellen, hands up in the air. All right, so we spray the cleaner. I know, Lacey. I know.
Wow.
Going to take our paper towels and wipe our surface clean. Oh, don't stick that, buddy.
It was one.
Drop it down.
Like that.
All right.
Smoothie.
Now we've got a nice clean space to work on. All right, so we're going to be using this yeast to make our rolls. So as you can see, these are active yeast packets, which means, guys, there's living things in here. We're going to use these living things to make our bread rolls. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now here we go with mixing our ingredients for our yeast rolls. All right, so we've already set up here. We've got all of our ingredients measured out, and we're following a recipe that we looked up online. So it's telling us in a big bowl to mix our shortening. We're actually using butter instead. So we're going to stick the butter in.
Mom.
Sugar, which we've measured out here. Kellen, you want to dump the sugar in, buddy?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead, dump it in.
I do want to dip it
And the hot water. Lacey, would you like to dump the hot water in?
in. Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead, dump the hot water in. Good job. All right, we're going to mix that up now. Yeah, you think that's cool?
Yeah.
All right.
It's so
I'm gonna mix this
smooth.
up. And this hot water is helping melt our butter. Let's take a look at that. Oh, it's starting to melt. So we're mixing. Our butter's starting to melt a little in that hot water. And we're going to mix this until it's combined, and then we're going to let it cool down to lukewarm before we add our yeast in there. Mix together our butter, sugar, and hot water, and it's about lukewarm. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our yeast. So basically what we've made in the bowl so far is a nice little environment for the yeast to grow in. Kellen, can you hold the phone for me really quick?
Yeah.
Hold it right there and aim it at the bowl so we can see. Okay, so here's our packet of yeast. Get a picture of the packet. Show the packet to the camera. Good job. So we're going to cut it open. There goes the yeast. Right in there. So there's our little microorganisms right there. We just put in. All right. And we're going to mix them in. Until it's dissolved. It's called yeast. Can you say yeast? Lacey, say yeast. Yeast. All right. So our yeast looks pretty good and dissolved now. Now we're going to mix in the last few ingredients that we need for our food, or to make our little rolls. Kellen, go ahead and dump in the egg for me. Make sure you get it in the bowl. That's 1 egg. And Lacey, dump the salt in for me. Or do you want Kellen to do it?
I want her to do it.
Okay, Kellen, go ahead and dump it in for us. And next is the flour. So Kellen, hold on. We're just gonna do the flour little by little so we can mix it real good, okay? So go ahead and mix a little bit. Okay, let's stir that up. Okay, go ahead, more please. Keep going, Mom, only stir. A little more, a little bit more. Oh.
That will be so.
As we get ready to add our last little bit of flour, we're actually bringing in our stand mixer to help us because it is getting quite doughy and thick. So we got our dough hook, our stand mixer. We're gonna lock that baby up. Go ahead and mix in the last little bit of this flour. You get flat flour. Spatula's gonna help kind of mix some of the flour off the side so it can all join together in this dough.
Come on. I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Come on. Come on.
What's up, buddy?
I love you.
Love you too. Okay, and it looks like we are pretty good in mix now. Ingredients in, and so
teensy little bite.
No, buddy, we're not gonna taste this right now. It won't taste good.
Oh, wow.
And so what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna let this rise until it's about doubled in size. And this is an important step here for our purposes, because this is when we're gonna give those microbes, the yeast that we just put in, a chance to work. And those yeast are gonna start fermenting and producing carbon dioxide in there, and that's what's gonna allow our dough to rise. So let's take a little break and let that happen. Okay, so our dough is probably about doubled in size now, as you can see. So the next thing that we're gonna do now is we're gonna put it into a little muffin tin, which is what we're gonna bake it in, and we're gonna let it rise again. Okay, so now our dough is in the muffin pan. We're actually gonna let it rise again. So we're gonna give those microbes a little bit more time to eat that sugar and ferment in there, and the dough is gonna rise a little bit from the byproducts of fermentation. We filled these about halfway up to begin with, and now they're starting to overflow the muffin tins. So the yeast has done its job. Those microbes have been fermenting in there, and their byproducts are causing the dough to rise. And so now we're gonna go ahead and bake these guys. Okay, and our rolls are now out of the oven and they are done cooking. So that's how you use microbes to make yeast rolls. Everyone, so now that we've made our yeast rolls, we're going to talk a little bit about the microbes involved and how it all worked, how we use those microbes to make our bread. So yeast is what we use. Those were the little living organisms in our recipe, and the yeast feeds off of the sugar and other things that you're going to add into that recipe. That's what it uses as food, and it's undergoing fermentation. Those little yeast are undergoing fermentation, and as a result they're producing carbon dioxide, which is what causes the bread dough to rise. And so that's what's supposed to give you this spongy texture when you make like yeast rolls like we made today. So yeah, an increase in carbon dioxide. And we were pretty successful. Our rolls came out really good, and we ended up having them with broccoli cheese soup for dinner, and the kids loved them. My husband loved them. It was good. I would say if I made them again, though, I'd probably give them a little bit longer to rise, give those yeast a little bit more time to ferment, so that they would produce a little more CO2, because it was a little bit dense. Like, it probably should have just risen longer. There was 2 different waiting times during it where you're supposed to let the dough double, and I think the first time I probably could have waited a little longer and let that dough rise a little bit more before I split them. So if I had to change something, that's what I'd change.